Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel and to a what I eat in a day as a vegan. For breakfast, I made this one pan mixed berry breakfast crumble. I made a topping for this using rolled oats, spelt flour, nut butter. Either smooth almond or cashew butter works great. A little maple syrup and a little salt, but this is really versatile and I sometimes mix up the ingredients entirely and it all comes together to form this lovely crumbly topping. I switched over to stainless steel pans recently in an attempt to cook as non-toxic as possible. And fun fact, to make these non-stick, you simply heat them up, then add a splash of water, and when the bottom part of the water droplets vaporize, it produces an insulating layer. It's called the Leidenfrost effect. Then added in frozen mixed berries and just warm those through until they start bubbling away. And once they've softened in their own nice berry sauce, I sprinkle over the crumble and also a little melted vegan butter on top. It just helps the crumble go nice and golden in the oven, but sometimes I'll also rub the butter into the topping mixture itself. You can bake this in the oven, but I just pop this under the grill to bake until golden and hot all the way through. And I usually get 2 portions from this, so I'll have the other half the following day for breakfast or even as a dessert. This is always a favorite breakfast for me in the colder months. I have it with some creamy cold coconut yogurt and it's just so warming and comforting, but it packs in some fruit first thing. You can add in apples or pears. Oats are a great slow release energy, and adding in nut butter to the topping as well as some seeds on top like hemp and pumpkin just adds that extra plant protein. It's very much soup in a sandwich season, so for lunch I had one of my favourite soups with a sandwich on the side. I first made a marinade for my tofu with some coconut yoghurt, added in some harissa paste, some smoked paprika, caraway seeds and a little maple syrup, and just mix that through until all well combined together. I then took a block of firm tofu and a vegetable peeler and just peeled off strips of tofu. You end up with these thin little slithers which are really meaty when they're stacked together. I'll link to a video below where I share my recipe for shaved tofu skewers, which are unreal. I then laid those out on a lined tray and brushed the marinade onto each strip. I do 2 coats and then repeat on the other side. Again, usually I'll just do a big batch of these to have for other lunches during the week. It's really great as a preppable sandwich filler. And you can fry these in a pan with a little oil or bake them until they go slightly crispy. The soup I'd already made the day before. This is my tomato and basil soup. I have this on repeat this time of year. I'll link to the recipe, but I made the consistency a little thinner. I also saved a little of the marinade to brush inside my sandwich as like a sauce. The bread was a green olive focaccia panini, so good. I sliced up some tomato to go in and also these little sweet picante peppers, which actually have a little spicy kick to them. I laid up the tofu in the sandwich once they were baked, then added the tomatoes on top, the pickled picante peppers and some fresh spinach leaves. I think this could be one of my favourite ever soup in a sandwich combos. Truly ultimate comfort food. I usually add a block of silken tofu into the soup too, but as I said, I made the consistency a little thinner. Skip the tofu as I was planning to use silken tofu in my dinner anyway, but if you want to pack in some more plant protein, it's great for that. Plus it makes soups really creamy. For dinner, I made a different version of my lazy pan lasagna. I shared this recipe on Reels recently and mentioned I wanted to experiment with some additional ingredients in this. It's already packed with loads of veg. I started by frying off some white onion, which I really finely minced down for the most flavour. Soften that in some olive oil in a large shallow pan, then mince up some carrot and celery and add those to the pan. And this mirepoix is always such a great base to build savoury flavour in so many dishes, and stocks, sauces, soups, stews, especially things like bolognese and ragu. As I said, it packs in those veggies. You soften those down together almost until they're ever so slightly caramelised. I then added in a couple of cloves of minced garlic. I use a microplane grater. I think it's the best method to get the most flavour from your garlic. And I fried everything off before then adding in some smoked paprika and dried mixed herbs. Then really build on those layers of flavours with tomato puree, vegan Worcester sauce, soy sauce, balsamic, a bay leaf. Sometimes I'll add in some vegan red wine if I have any, and fry those off together. I added in a tin of really good quality chopped tomatoes. These honestly make all the difference. And a drained tin of lentils. Any lentils will work, but I find lentil vert or beluga work best. They're smaller, but with a bit more of a bite to them. Finished with veggie stock, salt, pepper, stirred it all through and left to simmer for around 30 minutes while I prepped everything else. I then cut an aubergine up, first into rings, then into quarters for these nice little bite-sized pieces scattered throughout the lasagna. And I tossed them through some extra virgin olive oil and a good pinch of flaky sea salt on a baking tray. Then bake those for around 25 to 30 minutes until they go slightly caramelized, but not overcooked because they'll continue cooking when baked in the lasagna. For the silken tofu cheese sauce that goes on top, I add a block of drained silken tofu to my food processor bowl with olive oil, lemon juice, nutritional yeast and salt, and blend that until smooth. It's similar to a tofu ricotta I make, but it works really nicely on top of this dish as an alternative to like a bechamel. Once the lentil bolognese had reduced down, I then removed the bay leaf, took some jarred char-grilled roasted peppers and chopped those up. Also chopped up some meaty sun-dried tomatoes and some pitted green olives too. I added some minced capers into the pan, then added those peppers, sun-dried tomatoes and olives in. Removed the aubergine from the oven and added that into the pan too with a big handful of fresh spinach leaves and turned it all over until it was combined well and the spinach started to wilt. Then in a separate pan I just boiled some lasagna sheets until al dente. I use a little olive oil to stop them from sticking together, and once they've softened I kind of nestle them into the lasagna like this and cover them in the bolognese sauce. Folding them in like this just adds a bit more texture to this dish. You can also break the lasagna sheets up and add them in that way, but I actually like the whole lasagna sheets instead of smaller pieces. I then just added spoonfuls of that tofu cheese sauce over the top and drizzled with a little bit more olive oil before baking in the oven for around 15 minutes at 180 degrees Celsius until it's hot all the way through, and also any little pieces of the lasagna sheets poking out of the sauce go a little bit crispy. Finished with lots of black pepper and fresh basil on the top. I always do a side salad with the lasagna. It's just nice and fresh and light in contrast to such a heavy, rich dish like a lasagna. So this was just a simple rocket and cherry tomato salad, tossed in some olive oil, salt and lemon juice. I call this a lazy lasagna, but it's almost just as much work as layering an actual lasagna. But it's fun and different, and the addition of the capers, roasted peppers, sun-dried tomatoes and olives are what I wanted to experiment with in this dish, and it really adds so many more flavours and textures. Finish the day with some peppermint tea from Pucker and a few squares of this 74% royal mint dark chocolate from Montezuma's. I hope you enjoyed today's video. All of the recipes will be written below for you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.